Live from Tokyo is Chris Smith, staff writer, Sports Business Journal, who is live from Tokyo. I think it's around, 11:10 p.m. over there?
Exactly right.
All right, so Chris, walk us through some of the highlights from over the weekend.
Sure. Well, I think number one on the list has got to be skateboarding making its Olympic debut. The men's street was on Sunday. The women competed on Monday. New sport to the Olympics. And I think a lot of people are looking at skateboarding like they do the snowboarding half pipe in the Winter Games, right? Where it's something that was a huge deal in the action sports space and really unheard of in the Olympic world. And then it makes its Olympic debut and almost immediately becomes one of the most popular sports there is, right, on the program. And so we saw Japan steal gold in both events. Huge win, I think, for the hometown crowd here. I was leaving the men's event on Sunday. Dozens of Japanese citizens waiting outside the gates. Just to get a sight of the medal winners. So I think pretty big deal and certainly the highlight for me for the weekend.
Now, I want to talk on a more serious note. More than 1,700 new COVID-19 cases were reported in Tokyo yesterday on the second official day of the Olympic Games, with 16 athletes now among those infected. Do you think organizers will still use that whole cancel the games if the situation gets worse? What do you think?
Well, I mean, at first I'd note, the 1,700 is for all of Tokyo. That's
Yes.
not the Olympic number, which is, I don't know the latest. Last I heard it was in around 130, 140 total for Olympic-related cases. I think that by and large, the stakeholders that I'm talking to are thrilled. They think that things are going well. And yes, there are positive cases, but we knew that was going to happen. You couldn't possibly avoid, COVID infections having the Olympics in 2021, which is an unfortunate truth, but is the truth. But I think people are generally still positive. If you look at the infection rates for visitors coming into Tokyo for the Olympics, it's less than 1%, right? It's far lower than you see infection rates in many American cities right now. So I think generally people are optimistic. They're still bullish. They think that, things are going well. This is working kind of as best as you possibly could have hoped for. Is it perfect? No, far from it. But that was sort of to be expected.
Now, one of the most visible changes is no fans allowed in the stands. I gotta ask, has no fans in the stands impacted the athletes in particular so far? What's the mood like there? Because everyone is in their rooms, have 10 minutes to eat, back in their rooms. What's it like over there?
Yeah, the athletes I've spoken with, it's kind of the same story with everyone. It's weird, right? If you're an athlete at this level, you're used to big crowds, right? You're used to people cheering your name, and that's just not there. And so it's a very strange environment. I think a lot of the athletes obviously have been competing over the last year, many of whom have been competing in empty arenas. So it's not something that's totally new to them. But for a stage like this, right, the biggest stage of all, it is strange. Whether or not it's affecting them competitively, I don't know. I think it's hard to say. No one's really going to admit that. I noticed with a lot of the skateboarders, they've all got the earbuds in. They're trying to get in their zone. I was at the aquatic center the other night. A lot of the swimmers, and obviously, I guess for them, their ears are underwater most of the time, so maybe it's not the biggest deal. But you can tell, everyone is just trying to stay in their zone, keep the momentum up, even without the benefit of having the fans there to cheer you on.
Now, like you mentioned, there's a lot of new Olympic events this year, including, like you said, skateboarding, softball, and karate. Which are you most excited about, and which sports do you feel are still missing?
It's a good question. So I enjoyed the skating. I was excited for that. Hopefully headed out to see the surf finals, another new event. Americans have been doing very well in so far. So looking forward to get out to the beach. Hopefully this incoming typhoon doesn't impact it too badly. And beyond those, what do I want to see? Paris 2024 has breakdancing on the program. Very interested to see that. And I will say, one thing that I think a lot of people are keeping an eye on, potentially 28, potentially further out, is whether or not esports are going to be in the mix. I doubt they'll be on the actual medal program anytime in our near future, but we may see them as sort of a provisional event or some sort of esports programming around the Olympics. And I think that would be a pretty interesting step forward as we see, the IOC is introducing a lot of these new sports and events to reach a younger audience. And I can't think of one that would be better suited for that task than bringing video games into the mix.
The bragging rights for these 16-year-olds would be off the charts. Now, you mentioned weather a little bit. In Japan, the weather is causing some concern among organizers with the daytime temperatures hitting, I think, above the 90s. There was a tennis star who described the humidity as brutal. Do you expect this to have a material effect on the games?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I think we knew was going to happen, but it's still absolutely miserable to deal with.
Oof.
My first day actually out of hotel quarantine here, I had to quarantine the first 3 days. Day four, decided, let me see what I can get to just walking around. Before 9 in the morning, I'd sweat through my shirt in 10, 15 minutes. It is
Wow.
hot and humid, and it is sunny all day. The skaters at the skateboard event, actually, I noticed some of them had sort of ice water vests they're putting on between runs. Just to try to
Jeez.
keep their temperature down. And the fans were, I could tell you, I skipped a little bit of heat number 4 in the prelims just to duck into the shade. So yeah, I mean, it is definitely a serious factor, right? I mean, in any athletic competition, so if you're outdoors and you have that kind of weather to deal with, it's going to impact things. So I think. And we saw, one archer, I believe, actually collapsed due to the heat. So, there has been, a few of those scary moments. So far, I don't think we've seen a huge detrimental impact, but obviously track and field doesn't start yet until really close to next weekend. And maybe, that'll be when we really start to see whether or not this heat and this humidity is going to have a major impact on the athletes.
Now, I want to ask, NBC's broadcast of the Tokyo opening ceremony drew the smallest audience for an opening ceremony in 33 years. Are you shocked by this? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we knew it was going to be down, right? We've seen sports ratings are down across the board all year. I will note this is also the first year that NBC aired the programming live in the morning. And so I'm still unclear on how much, that may have cannibalized the primetime viewership, given that a lot of people may have already watched it online and decided to watch something else in the evening rather than tuning in to the NBC primetime broadcast of the ceremony. But, it's hard to say, right? Whether or not that's going to be sort of a foreboding indicator and whether viewership's going to be down throughout the games or not. So I think it remains to be seen. I would, one thing I will say is a lot of the people I talk to expect that this is going to be the most watched or most engaged with Olympics we've ever seen. And that's a hard thing to measure, right? How people are engaging with it. If they're watching it at friends' houses, at bars, as people are now finally trying to get back into real life and, get out of the living room where you're watching everything on TV. I think that's a little bit bullish, right? And a little too bullish probably, to hope that this is going to be the most watched games ever at a time when there's more competition for viewing eyes than ever before. But I do think that, we're starting to see some strong interest and engagement. Very anecdotally, I'm seeing on social media, a ton of people are engaging with Olympic stuff who I've never seen do it before. So maybe that's a good sign.
All right, my last question. In a post-COVID future, you're there, you're living it, you're breathing it. How will we look back on the Tokyo Games?
That's the question I'm asking everybody. So I wish I knew the answer. The sense I get, and look, and be fully forthright here, the people I'm talking to on the ground here are all optimists, right? They all work in this industry. They care very deeply about the Olympics. And so obviously, they all think the legacy of the Tokyo Olympics is going to be this moment where the world came together. We celebrated the fact that we're finally moving past COVID. And, let's hope that's true. So, God willing, that is the case, right? And we can look back on Tokyo Olympics fondly to say, I can't believe they pulled that off. I can't believe in the face of a pandemic, these organizers with a year, right, to prepare not just the operations and the delivery of the Olympics, arguably the biggest sporting event in the world, but also with all the COVID protocols on top of that, the testing and the quarantining and the contact tracing. It is a Herculean effort. And so I think, if they pull this off, we're going to look back on these games and say that was an incredible, impressive feat. And hopefully, really sends us off into a better world than we've been in for the last year plus.
I like your optimism. Chris Smith, staff writer, Sports Business Journal, thank you so much for joining us this morning or this evening for you.